Hi, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to the Excel Email Manager, where in this episode I'm going to show you how to track categories, all emails in Outlook, and automatically create folder attachments quickly and easily using any type of application simply by dragging and dropping it and automatically categorizing and creating folders with the attachments. It's going to be a great training. Let's get started. Okay, thank you so much for joining me today. It's going to be an exciting training, something I haven't done. In fact, something that I haven't done very often, which is program VBA in Outlook. So I'm really excited to get that done. And we're going to program line by line with you. So when I make mistakes, you're going to see them. All right, so it's a great training, so I can't wait. Basically, the idea of this training is to bring email from Outlook into Excel, and let's go over why we might want to do that. Well, we might want to combine attachments per contact per email receiver. We may want to organize our attachments. In fact, in this training, we're going to organize attachments in this folder so that there will be folders created every time a contact sends you an attachment, and a folder will be created, and then all attachments for that contact will be created. And that's going to be done automatically and dynamically, so that's going to be a really great way. And of course, once we have all that, we want the information, all those emails, to be displayed in this table here. And of course, when I select on a specific email, I want those details to show up here. And then I want all of those attachments, if any, for that contact to be displayed here regardless of the email. So if this particular contact has sent me an attachment today, one yesterday, and one last month, I want all three of those attachments. So any attachments. So we want to get attachments. We want to contain attachments on a per email address basis as well as a per email. So I want that. And so really we're going to be focused on two different databases and one front end, one end where we're going to show them all. We're going to combine our emails along with our attachments. And to do that, we need to create two different tables, two different lists or database. One is going to be an email, and this is just an email history. We're going to have the received on, date and time, from email, a name of the contact, the subject, the email message, a category in which we can add in dynamically a little bit later on, the number of attachments with that email, and of course the row. I'm not sure if we're going to use this. Maybe later on we'll need it. I'm not really sure. I just included it there as more of a placeholder in case we want to edit a category later, and we'll know what row to add it on. So that's kind of this is usually for categories. We wouldn't want to edit any information within the email generally, but we may want to edit the category. So I'm putting a row in there, although we may not use it in this training, but just as a placeholder. Then what we're going to do is we're also going to store attachments. That means any and all attachments are going to be stored here, including the file path. And that file path is going to be set based on something we create in the code. In other words, it's going to be copied from the location within Outlook. We're going to copy it over to a folder with the name of that email, and we're going to put that file in there, keeping the same name but also duplicating it so that we always have a record of the attachments, and it's in an organized manner. Outlook is a great application, and it does a lot with emails, but it doesn't work very well with attachments. They're kind of spread out, they're hard to find, they're not organized. You actually have to save as and then put them in a folder. We're going to do all of that automatically. So while emails are great to be filtered, we can do that in Outlook, and we're going to be able to do that in Excel as well. The ability to categorize, organize, and display attachments is where this application is really going to shine. And it's relatively simple in its creation and its design. Just two different database lists, one attachments, one email, and then one front end where we're going to combine the two, and we'll be able to do it. And this is probably going to be a multi-part, maybe two, maybe three parts, where we're going to be doing, but in this particular training, we're going to focus on bringing the Outlook email in here. And in future trainings, we're going to work on filtering those email. We're going to work on maybe selecting the attachments, maybe displaying a icon, displaying a small thumbnail of that attachment here on the right side. So we've got that, and basically there's no code on this, it's just an empty database. So we're gonna walk you through it step by step. So I can't wait to get started. Speaking of applications, if you have not checked out my dynamic dashboard, that is a single click dashboard, do check that out. I'm gonna leave the links that's in the code there in the description down below. I'll go ahead and put that in there if you wanna skyrocket your Excel and dashboard skills, learning tricks, techniques, and tips that you have never learned before. That is the dashboard course. So be sure and check that out. That helps create and keep these trainings free for everyone. So I really appreciate you taking a look at that. All right, moving on. What we're going to start out with, the Outlook code. And basically what I want to do is I want to bring the information into Excel, but we've got to get some code within VBA, within Outlook. So we're going to pull up Outlook. Outlook is required for this training, and here is my Outlook here. Okay, and in this instance, what I want to do is every email that comes in my inbox, I want to send it to Excel. Now I can't predict when I'm going to get email, so we can duplicate that instance simply by taking files from, let's say, another folder and just simply dragging them into the inbox. That action alone will simulate new items in the inbox, and it will trigger the code within Outlook. So that's really all we have to do. So all I'm going to be doing is taking them from one folder and dragging them into my inbox. The code in Outlook will look for new items in the inbox and then run the code accordingly. So let's get into the VBA code, and to do that we'll want to display the developers tab here, which we don't have visible. You probably don't as well. So let's make that visible. I believe Alt F11 will get us there, but let's take a look into the file, and then we're going to go into the options just like we do in Excel, customizing the ribbon just as we do in Excel, scrolling down and selecting the developers. That's going to get us in our developers tab, Visual Basic here. Alt F11 of course will get you there, as well as you can see the shortcut right here. So we're going to go into that and clicking on that, and we'll see we've got just an empty space. And we also have an instance of this Outlook session. Make sure you have that there as well. You can insert modules, class, user forms, just as you do with Excel, but we're going to focus primarily on this Outlook session here. Now what I'm going to do in this instance is I'm going to provide you this code. I'm going to provide it in a Word document. I'll put it in, I'll zip it up along with the Excel training. Obviously I can't send you my Outlook, but what I'll do is I'll provide you with a Word document. You can copy and paste that code right here. Or of course you can write it out just as I'm going to write it out here, and we can do it together. Or what you can do is you can do both. You can download it and compare yours with mine, and you can also make changes. I expect that you will make changes, and we'll go over areas where you might want to make changes, especially when it comes to categorizing and filtering. I'm going to take all of my inbox items and bring them to Excel, but you may want to just bring in from a certain sender or from a certain type. So you may want to filter out the items or the emails that you receive and bring only those into Excel. For cause of speed, for reason of speed, we'll just go ahead and run everything that comes in our inbox a little bit easier. All right, the first thing we're going to do is write an option explicit. That is going to stop on all errors, so we want to make sure that that should be automatic. If it's not, then it'll be there as well. Option explicit. And then what I want to do is in Excel, there's some difference in code. You know how in past trainings we use XL up, and that's just to find the last row of data. And we need to know the last row of data in Excel, but to do that, to find the last row in Excel from Outlook, we need to use the enumeration, which is the number for XL up. So we're just going to create a constant, and we're going to call it XL up. That's the same name, but just happens to be the same name as long, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to say equals, and that number is minus 4162. Why is that? I don't know. That is the specific enumerator, the number that goes with the XL up. So basically what this is going to tell is tells Outlook exactly what part of the library XL up is. So we can, from this point on, we can use XL up just as we do in Excel, but it wouldn't work in Outlook if we just left it as XL up, but this helps us do that. So what I'll do is I'll put a little note here, and we'll call it set the enumeration for Excel's, because it's part of Excel, it's not part of Outlook. That's basically the reason. So we have to call it specifically. And then what we'll do is we'll call a private with events, private with events, because there's something, that's an automation type, so don't worry about it. With events, inbox item. We're going to be focused on inbox items, so that's very important because that's what we want to focus on. as Outlook items. Outlook, what type of Outlook items? We're going to be focused on just the Outlook items. All right, now we can continue. We have a private sub. We want something on startup because we want this to run a startup. Now remember carefully, when you write this code, you'll either have to run the code or actually start Outlook. It'll only run when Outlook starts or if you run it directly. So keep that in mind. If there's a bug or an issue, you may have to restart Outlook for it to come up. But private sub application startup, that's what we're focused on. Startup. Okay, so we've got that written. Now, what are we going to do? And well, first we're going to dimension the Outlook app as an Outlook application. Outlook application. Okay, so that's what we want to do. We also want to dimension the namespace for Outlook. So dimension object, we'll just use object, and S as Outlook namespace. Okay, we want that. Namespace. Okay, so we've got that covered, and then we want to set both the Outlook application and we want to set the namespace. So once we've dimensioned them, then we want to set them. So we're going to set the Outlook app. That's the one we just created. Equals Outlook application equals Outlook application. Okay. Next up, we want to set the namespace. So we're going to set the one we just created, object namespace Outlook app dot get namespace, and then mappy. That's what we're going to use, mappy. All right, so we've got that. Now we've set both the object and the Outlook, and we also want to set the inbox. So let's go ahead and set the inbox because we're going to be focused on inbox items equal to object, again, object and S this time. Object, the one we just set, and S, and what we want to do, get default folder. We want to focus on that. Get default folder, and then it's going to be the OL folder inbox. That's what we want to focus on, the inbox. Remember, we're just focused on the default inbox and the dot items. That's what we're doing, so we want to get that. Okay. All right, that's going to set up our startup. Now we are ready to write inbox items, item add. So now we're going to write our macro. This is going to actually pull in our specific items. We're going to get those new emails and then take that information and put it in Excel. So we can write a private sub inbox items, item add by value, okay, item as object. Okay, so now we've got item, now we've got a sub. Now we can start dimensioning all the variables that we're going to use in this macro. So let's go ahead and write that. The first thing we want to dimension is the message as an Outlook mailbox item. Outlook mail, Outlook, what type of dot mail? Mail item, okay, mail item, okay. And then we want to dimension the Excel application and the Excel workbook, both as object. Okay, so we're going to go over late binding, and otherwise we would have to pull in the library, right? I'm not going to pull in the library because you may, but if you wanted to pull in the library, in fact, let me make sure, we don't need this. We may or may not need this. It depends on your earlier late binding, so keep that in mind. I'll go ahead and select it now, but we'll try to do late binding, which means we'll call them as objects. We won't call them as, so you may not need to pull this Excel up, but if there's an error, you find something missing, locate the Excel object library. It'll just be down here. Just select it, okay? If there's any issue with the library, just select. You may have 14, 15, 16, or 12, or whatever. So it just as long as we have the Excel object library, it may be needed depending upon your own configuration. So keep that in mind. But we'll try to do the late binding, meaning we'll just dimension them as objects early on. So dimension Excel app as object. And we're going to do the same thing for the workbook. Dimension Excel workbook as object. And also, we're going to be focused on attachments, so we're going to dimension attachment as an attachment, okay? Because we're going to, you see we're attachment, because we need to specify those, that's important. And then we also want to dimension, we're going to set a specific attachment folder. So we're going to set the attachment folder as a string. Attach folder as string because that's going to be important. We need to set that. We need to know the file name. That is the actual file of Excel, the entire file name. That's important. That's going to be different for you, so you're going to have to customize that. Make sure you do specific to your location of your Excel file. So dimension file name as string. And then the email row, we're going to need to know what email row we're focused on. When we add the email in Excel, we need to know what row to add it. So we need to define the email row as long. So that's going to be important. All right, we also want to know the attachment row. Just when we add attachment rows in the cell, we need to define those attachment rows as long. Attach row as long. And also, we need to know the attachment number. I want to count the number of attachments. I want to know how many attachments for email, and I want to put that in Excel. So we need to count them as we go through. If an email contains 5 different attachments, I want to know that. So I want to count them. So attach, we'll call that attached number as long. All right, next up, we also want the file number. That's going to help us determine whether Excel is open or not. Basically, what I want to do is if your Excel email application is open, I want to keep it open. If it's closed, I want to open it and close it. So that way it keeps the user happy. If it's not open, let's do our work and close it. But if it's open, don't close it. So we need to determine if it's open or not. So that's going to take a little bit of code. So to do that, we need to dimension the file number, and I'll walk you through that as long because we're going to need that. And also I want to know the error number. That's going to help us determine, so we'll call that error, and I'll walk you through that code number as long. And then of course I want to know if it's open or not. So we're going to dimension that, the workbook, let's capitalize that, workbook open as Boolean, true or false. So I want to know if it's open. Okay, so now we've got our dimensions. Now we are ready to start writing our code. The first thing we want to do is we want to put a big if statement. If the type name item equals mail item, we're going to focus on that. So if type name, what type of name it is, item equals mail item, then, okay, so if it doesn't equal mail item, then we're not going to do anything. So all the code we were going to write is between here. So if it's not, it's just going to exit out. We could easily write, if it doesn't equal mail item, then exit the sub. That would be just as easy. So all of our code is going to be written here when we focus on that. So we're just focused on if the type is a mail item, then do the following. And the first thing I want to do is determine the file name. That is our Excel file name. So I want to put that into a variable. We've already defined that as a string. File name equals, and for you, this is going to be blank. Remember, for you, what goes in here, when I send it to you, this is going to be blank, but it's critical. In fact, let me just do this. If file name equals blank, this is for you because for me it's not blank, then message box, please add a full file name for your Excel application. And I'll tell you what to do. So it can't be blank. It's not going to run if it's blank. Then we're going to exit the sub. So we'll put up a, so this here can't be empty. So I'm going to put that file name. In fact, my file name is located, I'm just going to pull it from somewhere where I've got it, which is right here. And I'm going to copy and paste it in. And what this is the full file path for my Excel. In fact, it's C here. C users, that's where I'm located. And basically this is the location for this file here. This is where it's located. If you can see here, this is the location. You can copy it right from here, no problem. Copy that, right? That's the location. Wherever you put yours, you want to keep it there. So we're going to copy that location, right? And then we want to put that right in our Outlook, and that's very important. So we want to put that right in here. All right, so copy that, paste it right in here. That is where it won't, remember, it won't run if it's blank. This check is going to tell us. So you've got to put yours. When I send you this code, I'm going to send it to you with this blank. Obviously, your location and my location are going to be very different. So there's no point for me to send you my location. So keep that in mind. Once you do decide where you want to put this application, it should stay there, and then copy the link and put it there. So for my purposes, this is where it's located. All right, so moving on, we've defined the file name. Now what I want to do is I want to determine if Excel is open or not. I want to know in my instance, this Excel is open, right? So if it's open already, I just want to add the email information and then keep it open, right? I don't want to close it if it's already open, but if it's not open already, I want to open it, I want to add the details, and I want to close it again. Okay, basically we're trying to understand what the user is doing. If it's open, we want to keep it open. If it's closed, we want to close it when we complete. So that's the point where we're going to, so let's do that. Let's add a comment here. Determine if Excel file is open or not. So that's what we're going to be doing right now. So we're going to type on error, resume next. Okay, yes, that's auto hotkey that automatically typed that. All right, I have a video on that. I believe we focused on that in the last one. And that is also a bonus in my course. If you want to get auto hotkey preloaded with all of this automated code, check out the dashboard course. I'll include the links in the description below, so make sure you get that. All right, so we've automated this. Now we're going to say the file number equals a free file. We're just going to pull up a file number equals free file, and then we're empty, and then we're going to get the free file. It's going to get us, we're going to use this to determine get. I kind of pulled this code off the Microsoft MSDN website. That they helped us out there to determine really if it's a file number or not. So that code is there. You can file on MSDN. It helps you determine if there's a file open or not. There's a few different codes floating around. I found this one to be the most stable. So we're going to open the file name. I want to open the file. And we're going to decide it. Does it create an error? Is it locked? If it's locked, that means it was already open. So it's kind of a trick to figure out if it's open or not. So we're going to open the file name for input, lock, input, lock, read as file number. So it's just going to basically open it and lock it. And it's going to attempt, I'll write down here, attempt to open the file and lock it. So that's going to lock it. So what's going to do is going to make an attempt to open it and lock it. If there's an error, then there's going to be an error. And depending upon the type of error, we can determine if it's open or not. Okay, let's spell that right. Read, one A in that. Okay, next up, now once we determine that, we can say close. Once we've closed it, right, we can just close it now. All we had to do was open it. So close file number. So we can close the file there. I'll put some notes on that so you know what's on to close the file. So now we've closed it. Now we can determine the error number. Remember, we've dimensioned these already up there. Error number equals ERR. So that's going to save the error number that occurred. So you know what's going on there. So once we save the error number, then we can basically do some work with that based on the error number. Then we can do it. So we can use a case. So we have to determine now there's an error number saved here in this error number. Based on that error number, we know if it's open or closed. So we're going to use select case because there's a few different options. So we're going to use, first we just need to do on error go to 0. So we'll automate that on error go to 0. So that clears anything up. So the code continues if there was an error. Select case. Case is a great way to case, and then error number. Okay, so what are we doing? What case is that? If the case is 0, if that case is 0, then the file is not already open. File is not already open by an open. Okay, so the case is 0. Then what are we going to do? If that's the case, I want to set the workbook open. Remember, that's the Boolean true or false equals. In this case, it's going to be false. Right? If it's 0, the workbook's not already open. Okay, what about another case? Well, what if the case is 70? That means it's open. Case is not 80, 70, then the file is already open. All right, so in that case, the workbook open equals true. Okay, in that case, it's true. And if there's any other case, then case else, in that case, there's an error number. In that case, it's just some other type of error. So we can set the error to the error number, and that's fine. So we can set that up. So that's going to, now we're going to set, so basically, we know now based on the error number, 0, the file is not open, 70, the file. So we've defined that here. So now we know if the workbook's open, workbook set openness to false, or if it's already open, it's going to be set to true. That's going to help us when we end the macro. When I close the macro, When this macro is done, we're going to save and close the workbook, but we're going to only close it if this is false when we finish our macro. So now we can continue on running. That's going to really help us. That just kind of makes it a much smoother experience. So now we can start the Excel application. Next up, we can start it. We've got the file name, so we're ready to start the Excel application. Okay, we're ready to start it, so we can open that. All right, and on air resume next, so we can write that up, and we're going to set the Excel application equal to get object. This is where that, and what type of object? It's going to be Excel application, Excel.application. Make sure I spelled that right, Excel application. Okay, good. And then we're going to set, this opens the, not the Excel workbook, but just the application itself, Excel application. Okay, so that's good. We've got that set up. Now we can go on error, go to 0, so we can end that if there was an error. Now we know, so if the Excel application is already open, it might create an error, right? It might create an error. And how do we know if there's an error? If there's an error, Excel application will be empty, right? So we can use an if there. It's basically just kind of error checking. If the Excel app is nothing, then what we'd want to do is we want to create the object. In that case, here we get object. We're just getting it because it might be open already. But if it's nothing, that means it's not open yet. So we need to open it. And we can do that with create object. So in that case, what we'll want to do is set the Excel app equal to create object, creating it. Now we're we're getting it because it's open, just getting it. And now we're creating it, create object. And what are we going to create? We're going to create Excel application. Okay, great. So and here we're going to open Excel. Okay, and then of course end if. All right, so we've got that. We're going to set either create it or get it. So now we have the Excel application open. What is the Excel application? It's just simply this, right? It's just an empty Excel application without the workbook open. Now at this point it's open. Now we need to open the workbook. Open the workbook. All right, so now we can run another check just in case. So let's continue on with our macro. But before we actually open the workbook, we need to actually make sure that the application is visible. Just creating an object doesn't actually make it visible. So we need to make it visible. Excel app.visible equals true. That's going to make it visible. So now it's visible. That's an important step. Otherwise, it might run in the background and you won't even see it. We want to see what we're doing here. So that's a very important part. All right, next up, now that we've made it visible, we can test the workbook open. If workbook, remember we set it up there, open equals true. If it's true, then we need to set the get object to file name just to get it, right? We don't need to create it. Then what do? Set Excel workbook equal to get object, not create, right? We don't need to open it. We just need to get the object. Get object. What are we getting? Remember, we've already defined the whole workbook into the file name. Here's the full file name. So we got that. So now we're going to get the object file name .application. So if it's open already, we need to do just that. Okay, else, what if it's not? What if it's not? If it's not open, we need to open it up. Else, and how do we write that? Okay, in that case, what we want to do is we want to set the Excel workbook equal to Excel application dot workbooks dot open. What are we opening? The file name. Okay, then we're going to open it. So basically, if it's open already, all we're going to do is get it and bring it to the forefront. If it's not open, we're going to open it. So that's all that line does. So now, from this point, now our workbook's open. Now we can focus on the email. Now let's get the information from the email. So now the workbook's open and we are ready to work with it. So we can move on from that. Let's define the attached folder. Now the attached folder is very important. So where is that attached folder? Well, I've put that right here in attachment folder. So that attachment folder is going to go right here. I'll use this browse and we'll be able to browse. We'll write a a macro to put that there. But for our purposes, P3 is where our attach. I've given this a name called attach folder. Remember, all we have to do is just type in the name, and it's very easy. It just goes there. We want to use a named range because that makes it easier. So our attachment folder is going to go right here. What is it? Well, I'm using this one right here, mail attachment. So I'm just going to copy this, but we'll find an easier way to do that. But I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to put it right here for now, just so we have something in there. That's where all of my attachments I want to go. I want to put them in there. And in this attachments folder right here, what I want to do is I want to put individual folders for every single email contact, every contact. I want any contact with attachments will go in here. Of course, no folder will be created if there's no attachments for the email. So that's important. So we just put it there temporarily. Eventually, I'll create a macro to browse for that. So let's pull this. I need to pull this as a string, and it's going to be sheet 1, email manager, sheet 1, attachments folder. So let's define that, and that's within Outlook, within the Outlook VBA. So let's go back into there, and we'll say attach folder equals, remember, Excel workbook. We're defining, we have to focus on the Excel workbook, which is this here. Sheets, what sheet are we going to work on? Email manager. We've given the sheet's name, the email manager. Email manager. That is the sheet name that we've assigned. Dot range, what is the range? Attachment folder. Oops. Let's copy that just so we know exactly. I always like to get the exact name. Control C. I'm going to copy that name range. I'm going to put it right in Outlook. That is the range that I want. Dot value. That's what I want. That is the attachments folder. We need that for attachments, so we want to define that right here. All right, now moving on, we're ready to set up our email. Now we need to get the email row. What I want to do is I want to take all the emails and I want to put them here, right? But I need to know the first available row. We're going to use A, just like we do in Excel. Is we're going to find the last row with a value, and then in this case, it's the last row with a value is 2, and in this case, plus 1 is going to be 3. So we need to write that into the code because I need to know what row to put that email on. In this case, it's going to go right here. And of course, we want the received on, from name, subject, message, category, number of attachments, and rows. So let's go ahead and write that. All right, so we've already defined it as the email row, so we can go ahead and write that in. Email row equals, again, referring to the workbook, Excel workbook, dot sheets. This time we're focused on a different sheet. This time we are going to focus on the email database. Email DB is the name that I've given to that sheet. Dot range, and then what are we going to A? We're going to work on column A. That is the first column, 99999. Right? Just use a high row. Dot and XL up, but in this case XL up has been defined already. So that's dot row plus 1. Now this code looks the same, but remember, this won't work here. This won't work, XLUP, unless we've defined this constant right here. XLUP is long. You can also take this number here and you could put it right in here too. You could put it right in here, okay? This will only work if you've predefined it. If you try this without doing that, it won't work because this is an Excel feature, Excel specific. So we need to call up exactly what number in Excel that is. All right, so this is going to get us our first available row. Now we know what row to put all of the new information in, so we can continue now. Now let's just write that down. First available row in Excel. All right, so we know what that is. Now we're going to focus primarily on our specific sheet in that range. So we can say with Excel workbook sheets, what sheet? Email database, right? And now we're going to focus primarily on that, adding all the data. So we can use a with and end with there on that. So email is the email sheet. And what are we going to do with that sheet? Well, the first column, dot range email, we need to put in when it was received, the received on, right? I want to know when it was received. First is received, then we have the from email and the name and so on and so forth. So let's focus on that. Dot range A and what? What is the row? Email, don't forget the and sign, and email row dot value equals, what is it equal? Well, in this case, item. We're always going to focus on item. We have a lot of options with item. And so in this case, we're going to do item received time, receive time. Okay, let's use that lowercase, and if it switches to uppercase, we know we have the right name. Nope, we don't. E-I-V-E, E-I-V, time. Watch if it's lowercase, right? See how time is lowercase, and then I enter it, it switches to uppercase. Then I know it's correct. So that's a great way to say it. And then we'll put the email received on. Okay, now we've got now let's just copy and paste that, and we can make changes accordingly. So let's paste that. Now we're going to focus on B. What is in column B? B, of course, is the from email, and it would be item also, but not item, and that would be the sender email address. Now, what if you want to add more information? How do you know what is in here? Well, we can take a look at the library and see what we have available to us. We can look at item and see what we have available. We have Outlook item. These are Outlook item. And we're looking for Outlook email items in this case, so we can find that. So let's put in sender, which we're focused on email address. Okay, and we see sender email address is part of mail item. Right? And if we look under mail item here, we have a lot of information: sender name, sender email type, sender using account, so sent on. So there's a lot of information that you can pull. We're going to only use a little bit, but if you want to expand on this, you can just look in the library and see what else you can pull up. There's a lot of information that you can get through the library. So that's a quick way to know what you can put into this. So there's a lot. But we're just going to focus on the basics today. All right, so now we have the from email, and now what we do is we want to in the from name. So in C, we're going to put the name, from name, from who is it from, and that would be sender name, or also known as sender. It's sender name. Okay, so that's the from name. Next, we're going to put in the subject and the message. So in D and E is the D, and E would be the subject. So we're going to put the subject in D, subject. And what is that? That's going to be item subject. Relatively self-explanatory. Subject. Okay, and of course the item is the body. That would be for the message, known as the body. And we can put in body on that so we know what it is specifically, all self-explanatory. Okay, so E, what about F? F is our default category. I'm just going to put in default category right now, but you can put in any type of category you want. I'm just going to put in text default category. Well, you can put in anything you want, and you can also use an if statement. If the sender name, or if the subject contains, or if something like that, then the default then the category is this or else. So this is really an area where you can customize it. Add in your category. That way we can filter categories once it's in Excel. So it's really just like we can do in Outlook, but it's really powerful in Excel. And in G is going to go the attachments, but we're going to skip that for now because we haven't focused on the attachments yet. A little bit later on, we'll add the number of attachments. So we're going to go right to H, and H is going to be our row number, and we may use that eventually, but I just want to put it in now because it's going to be helpful when we want to customize it. So the row number is simply a formula. And that formula is going to be equal row. So it's just going to be equal row, and then beginning and end, parentheses, and then, okay. So we've got that. Now we've got the row. So now we've got all of our data, so we can continue with the end with. We've got all of our data except G, which we're going to add in later. Now I need to know if there's any attachments. So now we have all of our information here. Now I want to know if there's any attachments. Add those here, add them here. All right, so let's continue that on with the code so we can get those attachments added. The first thing we need to determine is if there are any attachments. So let's add the note here, add attachments, if any. Okay, so to do that, all we have to do is count the number. If item, remember we're focused on item, attachments, is greater than 0, then add attachments. Okay, so if there, and if. Okay, so now everything's going to go between those two if. If there's attachments, we're going to and add them there. So let's continue. If there are, what do we do? Well, we need the row of the first available row of the attachments. So that's for sure. And then we also want to get the information on the attachments folder. So we can do that. Let's go ahead and write that. The first thing we want to do is check for sender's name and add the attachment folder if needed. Remember, every sender gets their own attachments folder. It's a great way to separate your attachments. So check for the sender name. I want to put check for sender. This is going to be a note. Attachments and add if needed. Add if needed. Okay. So we're going to add that folder if it's needed. So the first thing we want to do is we want to check for that to see if it's there. If the directory of attach, that's the name we assigned, attach folder, and then we're going to do / and / emphasis and what? And item dot sender name. We're looking for their name, right? I want to find their name. If that exists, VB directory, okay, if that exists, then we don't need to do anything. But if it doesn't exist, we have to do something. So what is that? So if it equals empty, then we need to create it, right? So let's do that, all right? So then we're going to create it. Okay, so now all we need to do is if it's empty, just create it. We can do that if the make directory, we can just make directory. What are we going to make? Well, it's just this right here. All we're going to do is just copy this right here. We're going to make the directory. That is going to be the directory. Okay, so if it's empty, we're just going to create a folder with that name in the attachments folder. Very, very simply. And all that's going to do, we'll add a note, add folder if it does not exist. Okay, so that's just a simple and if. So now if it passes this test, we know that there's always going to be a folder for that contact. And there we go. So now we can focus on the attachments. So now we're going to say with, because we're focused on the attachment sheet, with Excel workbook, sheets. This time we're going to focus on the attachments. Attachments, that's the name of the sheet. And then we'll say attachments, and we're going to focus on that. All right, so what are we going to do with that? Well, first of all, like I said, we need to get the attachment row. I need to know the first available row, just like we did with the emails. I need to know the first available row. We can use column A, of course, which is, oh, that's some previous data. We don't need that in there. All right, so A is going to be the sender email. So we're going to use that as the column there. And so we're going to find the first available column in A. So we can do that just like we did with the other one. We can say this, attachment row equals, again, we can say dot range, because we've already defined it up there. We've dot range A 99999 dot end XL up as defined above dot row, up dot row plus 1, right? Because I don't want to find the last one. I want to find one after that, which is the available one. That's going to get us our attachments row. So now we've defined the attachments row, and now what we're going to do is we've got the first available row. So now we say for each attachment. So now, because there could be multiple attachments, we need to have a little bit of a loop so we can focus on all of the attachments in that email. So we can use a for next loop for that. For each attachment in items dot attachments. So that means for all the attachments, do something next. So that's our loop right there. And so for each attachment, we are going to do something. Well, what are we going to do? We're going to focus and add all of that information in there. All right, and remember, attach has already been defined up here in our dimension as an attachment here. So we know it's an attachment because it's been defined as an attachment. So that way Outlook knows that we're focused on a specific attachment. All right, so let's first of all save attachment, save as file. So what I want to do is I want to copy that attachment folder into the new, wherever it is, I want to copy that, save as. Right now it's in the email in a specific Outlook folder. I want to take that, whatever location it is, and I want to put it in our new attachments or existing attachments folder for that customer. So we can do that with this, attach, save as file. We're going to save it. And where are we going to save it as? The attached folder. Remember, attached folder is going to be just basically this right here. Right here. Copy and paste that. That is exactly, we're going to attach folder and the item name and the sender name. And what else is there? And the attachment file name. So we need to add on to that. And what else? Again, backslash and again, and what is and the attached file name. So we want to save it in that folder with a specific name. What name is that? Attach dot file name. Okay, so that's the name we're going to send. We're going to use the same name, its current name. We're just going to save it into a save as a different folder. And that's remember, that's pretty much the same thing as what you would do if you have a specific attachment. All we're doing is we're right-clicking this attachment here, right-click, save as. So all we're doing is basically that, but we're doing it in the code itself. So it's kind of an automated approach. So all we're doing is that save as, the same idea. All right, so now we've saved it, now we're ready to add the information. So now add the information into the table. What information are we adding in the attachments? We're going to add in the sender email, the sender name, received on, the file name, the file type, and the file path. So we're going to add all that information into this table now on the first available row. So we can start out with column A, dot range, A, and what? A in the attachment row, and attach row value equals what? Well, that's going to equal the email address, item sender email address, equals item dot sender email address. Okay, because I want to put that email address because that's going to help us differentiate. That is like our unique ID, email address. We also have the date. That's going to help us too. Email ID is fine for contact, but an email can send you. So we also want the date. That's very important too. That is even more unique than the email. So both of those, date and time actually. Email address. All right, and next up we got B. We can copy this. Let's copy this here. Make it a little bit quicker. B, what's going to go in B? Well, in B, we're going to go put in the name of the sender. Name of that sender is going to go in B. So that is going to be item and then sender name. Sender name is going to go into B. Name. Okay, and then we can put sender name. And then we have C. What's going to go into C? Well, in C, I want to put in the received time. So item received time. I want to put that time and date received. Okay, good. I always spell that wrong. All right, next up, D. D, we want to put in the file name. D. I want to put in the name of the file. It's pretty simple. It's just item. In this case, item, we're going to put in attach file name. Attach file name. And so that's the file name. So we're going to put that in D. And then, of course, we have E. And that way, I'm going to put in this case, I am going to put the extension or type. The extension or type. And how do we do that? Well, in this case, I want to locate, basically I want to take the entire text of the file name and I want to locate the period on the most right and extract that and then pull because some extensions could be 3 digits, some are 4 digits. So we can do that with just a little bit of code. So we can do that here using right. What are we going to do? We want the right. And what is that? Well, we're going to start out with attach file name. Okay, and then what do we want the length? Well, what I want to do is I want to take the length of the entire text, and I want to subtract all of the characters to the right of that dot. So that's basically it. So we can do that with using the subtraction. The length of the attached file name, attach file name again, the length of that, minus, that'll give us all of the characters in that, minus, and what are we going to do? We're going to use in-string to find it. In-string reverse, so that's going to search from right to left because a file name could have multiple periods in it. I only want to find the rightmost, so we can use in-string reverse for that is going to go from right to left because I want to find the first one on the right. So in string reverse, attach file dot file name. Okay, and there it is. So what are we looking for? We're looking for that period or that dot right there. That's what we're looking for. So we're going to look for that, and that is going to get us our file extension. All right, our file extension, that's going to get it. So that's going to help us. So again, all we did was we found the entire length and we subtracted out wherever this dot is found, the rightmost dot, rightmost being in string reverse here. That is going to help us get to that extension. So that's how we get JPG, PNG, or whatever it is. All right, next up, now we have F. What are we going to put in F? Well, F is going to be the full file path. I want to put the full path of that because we may want to open it, view it, use a thumbnail. So we want the full file path here in F. So we can do that using attach file name along with the folder right here. So let's paste that in. F, right, we're focused on F this time, and what is it going to equal? F is it's here, it's all we have right here. This is it right here. Right here. All we need is this right here. Copy that and equals that. So since we've already passed it, we know the attachment folder, we know the sender name, and we know the file name. So that's all we need to get the full file path. Okay, great. Now we have that. Now we've got all of our attachments. And now remember, I want to count the attachments. I want to know how many attachments are in this email. So let's go ahead and put that. We've already defined that as a long attach. Oh, we have to do two things. Attach row equals attach, in case we have more, plus 1. So that's important. To count the number of attachments, item attachments. In fact, we can put that right up here. In fact, let's go ahead and put it up. Since we're not going to count them, we can do it right here. Put it in right here. G equals attachments, item dot attachments. Okay, now we've got, so we can put that in. That's a little bit easier, even quicker. We don't need to count them because they're automatically counted for us. Okay, so now we've run through all of our attachments here and we've set it up. Okay, great. So what's next? Now we've got our loop. Now all we need to do is wrap the row. This is going to be a long. If we paste in all of this content, this row is going to be very, very much that big, right? We don't want, I want those rows small. I don't want it to increase. So we just have to set the row to wrap the row, and that's important, especially in our email, because we've just pasted in all the information. So we can do that in our code right here. All we need to do is write in Excel workbook here dot sheets email. Remember, we're focused on the email now. Email database. I just want to wrap that row. Dot range A and the email row and the email row and through H, right? Through H all the way, and what? And the email row also. So that entire range, email row dot wrap text equals false. And the reason we do this is just so that every row is going to be about 15 in height. We don't want the rows growing, otherwise it's going to be really hard to work with if the row heights are so high. So we want to wrap text equals false. So we've got that. That's going to be for our email. So again, what we've done here is email, here in our email database, from the problem is the email message is going to be so big, right? Often it's going to grow this too big, and then it's going to be hard to work with. So when we wrap text equals false, it keeps them all in the same order. So that's really helpful. In testing purposes, it's kind of a mess, so I want to make sure we do that. So we've wrapped the text. That keeps everything nice and small. All right, we are good to go. Now we just need to check if the workbooks were previously closed or not, and if they were, then we need to close them. So we'll test this out. If, remember we had the variable here, workbook open equals false, right? If it wasn't open before, then we need to close it. Then Excel workbook dot close, and then true. We want to save it, so true. And this will save and close and close workbook if previously closed. Right? And then again, we're going to do it one more thing, close the application. If you'd like it, you can choose not to or not. So we can do that one more with the application as well. If, again, workbook, we can just do it. We could do this in 2 lines or 1 line. I spelled that wrong. BK, not X, BK. Okay. Book open equals false again. Then, okay, in this case, application close. We want to close the application. Excel app quit. Quit, we use quit for that. Quit. So that's going to quit the Excel application. Excel application if previously closed. All right, there we go. Let's go ahead and save that. Always save it. We should have saved it earlier. Now that it's saved, all right, let's go ahead and look it up here, back up here, look at our code. This doesn't look right, Outlook. Okay, and this is wrong here too, items, forgot a T there. All right, that looks good. What else, any other mistakes? Let's see, we got name. Alrighty, I think we're good. Now we want to go up here and we want to run this. That's the application startup. Clicking on anywhere in here and clicking run. That's going to run it. So now it's running. That's a critical step. Restarting Outlook would also do the same. So now that we've run it, it won't work unless we've actually run this. So clicking on here and clicking run. Now all we need to do is go into our Outlook and go into our test folder. I'm click here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to replicate receiving an item simply by dragging an email into the inbox. And there we go. And you see that? Now everything happened automatically. We've got the received on, we've got the from email. You'll see how it was really big, real quick, and then automatically it changed just back to 15, right? And that was because of our wrap text. So you probably saw that happen. And because you can see our email message here is big, right? We have a larger email message. Here you see it's a large email message. So we've got that. All right, now let's test out one email with attachments. Let's take a look at our attachments folder. That's empty. And all we need to do is go into our test and locate a file with attachments. Here we go. Here's a MailerLite. It's got a PDF in it. Let's drag that into our inbox. Again, automatically it goes in there. Now we look at our attachments. Our attachments table has one. It's got a new file. It's got a file path. PDF. It's been extracted. We got a file name. Let's take a look inside our mail. We have a MailerLite automatically added. PDF is automatically added here. So that is great. All right, excellent. All right, what we're going to do is in next week, we are going to take all of this information and we are going to add it into our email manager. We've covered an hour today. So I'm excited and we're going to bring that to you next week. We're going to show you how to bring it in, how to filter it if we can get to it, and all of that. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it. Have a great day.